Each of these tools has distinct distinct benefits. Primavera is great for scheduling and execution and detail. NetPoint, which can also be great for detail, is a more collaborative, plan-based tool. You get a lot more involvement during the collaboration process. And as we transitioned, right now we are in, I'd say, basic design, working towards our design development. We have a CM that just got onboarded in the last couple weeks. And PMA has been involved for the last year. So during that last year, we were taking the schedule through early development, schematic design development, starting from 0 and moving towards a NetPoint file that had about 500 to 800 activities. It was at that point that we rolled it into Primavera to allow for more detailed planning and to allow for, this will be an integrated schedule, so we'll have XCRs from the designer and the CM and the validation company all working in harmony together. But what we found was that we wanted to keep doing IPS sessions in NetPoint. The audience liked the tool. It was a very efficient effort for us. And now we were determining, now we have a great work product in NetPoint, and we have a great work product in P6, and what do we do now? What's the next step? So we'll hold these subject IPS sessions talking about, all right, let's detail out the Building 2 design, or the early packages for Building 2, or a suite build-out, or whatever it is. Sometimes those IPS sessions would turn into a detailed work plan, and they would never make it into P6 because we don't need that level of detail there, right? Here you go, Joe, project manager. Here's your work for the next 3 weeks. You guys work on that. But more often than not, it's scheduled that we did want back in P6. So the next few minutes, we're going to talk about efficient ways to do that. 2 ways to get information from NetPoint back into P6. There's a manual process and an automated process. And we're probably a 50-50 balance here, where we'll get those smart people in the room, do a planning session, and we may talk for 2 hours, but then you look at the NetPoint file and we've got 4 or 5 activities. And it was more about thinking out the process, thinking about the interdependencies. And it was all valuable time. It's just we didn't get a lot of scheduled content out of the effort. And that's okay. You know, we made a lot of progress. For small instances like that, we would just go into P6, add the activities, and call it a day. But when those IPS sessions really develop some volume, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60 activities, no one wants to be recreating that information. You may have intentional open ends in your NetPoint file. And the reason you have that is because you plan on tying it back into P6 somewhere. So a really simple thing, what we've done is in the description, we've just put in a keyword, touch point, or something like, you know, tie to P6. Remember, this is where we tie in. So once we pull it back into P6, we do a search for this term, get the list of those activities. Potentially, an even better solution is put the activity ID in at this point, you know, or some description so you know, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. This is kind of going to tie to validation of this room. So now you should have a NetPoint file that is nice and coherent and ready for export and then import back into P6. So the last 2 slides here are just about that process. So if you export the file, if you came from a P6 file, some of this stuff will pre-populate. It'll give you the version and the name that it was. It will come with the calendars, codes, and resources that you've assigned into it. And then you create your XCR file. A couple notes on calendars. I can't remember if I discussed this or not. Calendars will come in as a new calendar. So let's say, for an example, in your original P6 file, you have a calendar called Calendar 1 5-day. You export that data out into NetPoint, and you play around with it in NetPoint. The calendar would still be Calendar 1 5-day, but when you stick it back into P6, it's going to give it a new name. It won't, because it won't overwrite, it's going to call it Calendar 1 5-day-1 or something similar. So how do you overcome that? Once it's back into P6, filter down for those Calendar 1 5-day-1s, find all those and do a fill and replace to tie it back into your correct calendars. And again, this is where if you're looking to match your schedule, right? If you already have a P6 schedule that you're refining and building upon, let's say you exported an activity chain that had, in P6, you had activity A and B. You export that out to NetPoint, and now your schedule contains A, B, C, D, and E. If you, during your import settings, up under here, import action, if you match the file that's there and tell it what file to go back into, it's going to update A and B, but also add C, D, and E.